welcome everyone here and of course also watching online. So Klaus and I will be taking you through a journey through the Ory Network, telling you what it is, what it will become, what we have done this year and what our vision is. So Ory is running a global end-to-end security infrastructure, and we build it for humans, for robots, and of course for the servers that we as developers have to run. And parts of this infrastructure will and is and has always been open source, and we continue to develop key components of this infrastructure also as open source. These are the projects that you know and love, some of them like Hydra, Kratos, Docker Test, Foresight, to name a few of the, I think Thomas said it's 250. I lost count, to be honest, so I'll just take that number. Our new end-to-end security infrastructure has 4 major goals, and the first one is I want you to grab your favorite pillow and take a good night's rest, because you can rely on Ory security. And when we talk about end-to-end security, we don't just mean validating a token. For us, end-to-end security, it starts with the people who develop the software, so people like Klaus or Henning, who wrote Alexa in 1.5 weeks. I wasn't there. And the team has also grown significantly since the last Ory Summit, and we added a lot of expertise in security and software development and scalability. Of course, we also believe that end-to-end security means that you need to use open source and open standards to make a system secure. And beyond that, it's also about best practices when it comes to login, permissioning, delegation, and zero trust. But of course, also resilience and availability of a system are key components of security. If the system is not available, it's potentially not secure because it doesn't work. And in the end, of course, end-to-end security also means actionable intelligence. What do I mean by that? So if you have Dave, and you know Dave, and he's doing something in a system, is he actually Dave or is he not Dave? You don't really know, right? Unless you really verify and have a framework in place that ensures that Dave is Dave. We actually have a very interesting customer that's working on this with deepfakes, making sure that the video of the person you see is actually the person that they say they are, and it's not a deepfake. It would also be really good if you know how your users move across the network. Like, what are they doing every day in your system? And of course, is it normal behavior or is it like suspicious behavior? But also, like, what do they do every day? And this brings me to a key point that an Amazon study has found, which is that for every 100 milliseconds in latency, you lose 1% in sales, which is significant. So if you have like 1 second of latency, that's 10% in sales. That's why it's very important that a security network, which is in a critical path, is as fast as possible. And with a little bit of pressure, we were able to roll out our new system, which is a global cache system based on an edge network that will be able to answer most of the critical path requests within 50 milliseconds for P95, so for 95% of all of the significant requests. We've rolled this out already for our main system and for some playgrounds, and we'll roll it out for more customers over the next couple of weeks. We're also working on some mechanisms to bring down the latency even further, way below 1 millisecond, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. We'll probably present that in the next summit with some new tech. And I don't think we have lots of lawyers in the room. If we do, don't worry, we're not pivoting to a legal tech company, but instead what I mean by that is that it's still quite expensive to deal with all the regulatory requirements. Like, most of the companies that we work with have a global audience. They have customers in Australia, customers in California, customers in Germany. And all of these regions have different requirements when it comes to your data regulation and privacy compliance. With Ory, our goal is to build a global system where you don't have to choose, oh, am I in the EU region or the US region, but a global system that automatically deals with all the PII data, so the personal identifiable information data that you have accordingly to regulations. So just to cite a few, GDPR, CCPA, LGPD, and PDPA, And I bet there's like 20 more acronyms that some government is cooking up when it comes to data regulation. This has not really been done before, at least for a company that does end-to-end security. And it's a real challenge, but we are rolling out these features. The first one is the cache edge network that I presented over the next couple of months and quarters. And I think that you will be able to expect some really exciting changes next year. We do a lot of that, of course, because we want you, the people who use Ory, to attract a wider audience and scale better. It's no secret that, for example, when a company introduces social sign-in, I know it's already a little bit a dated technology, but you social sign-in, you increase the number of people who sign up to your service because it's easier. You don't have to put in your email address and your username and choose a password and all of this stuff. And I think that it will get even much better. So you'll have stuff like Face ID and Touch ID. You'll have platforms that just authenticate you, and you don't have to worry about password management and updating 500 different online shops when you move to a new place. At Ory, innovation is constant, and I think we have a little bit of proof of that. So one was the Ory permission language, but of course also Ory Keto, which is the first open source implementation of Google Sensibar. We are also the first company that published a service that supports Apple Passkeys, and they're also now known as Android Passkeys, so I think it will become a standard. And we might not be the first global network. I think Cloudflare was a little bit faster than us, but we will be the first global end-to-end security network that deals with all of these data regulation requirements when it comes to your users. And of course, we're ready to ship the next pivotal security and innovation. And of course, in the end, we do all of that so that your users are secure. So now maybe you might be asking, if you know Ory for a while, what happened to Ory Cloud? Like, where did it go? And the too long didn't read is we're renaming the product to Ory Network. So it's still the same like concept, but we feel that network much better represents the vision and the things that we're doing with Ory and the things that we're planning, because a network, it can be both physical and it can be logical. So connections between people is a network, and connections between servers is a physical network. And we think that this much more represents what Ory is doing with its product and with its vision. We will be publishing a blog post with like all the naming changes so that it's easy to understand what is what now if you know Ory already a bit. And with that, Klaus, I'm handing over to you to present some of the exciting things that we did and will do in the next couple of months.
Thanks, Aeneas. Great to be here. Great to have you all here. Let me go into a little bit more detail about what the Ory Network actually is by now, where it's going and what we've been up to over the last years, and specifically since the last summit. So as Aeneas says, we are building this full-scale end-to-end security network. And essentially, it's internet infrastructure for trusted access. Trust has always been hard on the internet, and it hasn't gotten easier. And we now have all the critical pieces from end-user authentication all the way to access controls for APIs and servers and devices and apps across clouds, across networks, across different infrastructure platforms. We brought all of the functionality of our key open source projects onto the network, and we've been integrating the pieces and projects in new and exciting ways. And we run this for you, so we carry the pages and you don't have to, right? So we create this reliable, scalable, survivable, fast, and compliant infrastructure. So let's go into a few things that are new since you first heard about Ory Cloud, maybe. So let's start with where the users start, with authentication. Everybody has customers, everybody has them online, and everybody needs to sign them in. And the traditional way is passwords, right? But people are humans, and humans reuse passwords. They don't actually remember all of the passwords. And also passwords get leaked all the time. The count I found for last year is 2 billion. So I guess a bunch of people have multiple passwords leaked, but like comparing this to like 7 billion people on Earth means like your chances are quite good that you have your passwords leaked. And what that implies is that even if you build rock-solid password authentication into your system, that might not actually help your users because their accounts are still going to get compromised because the password leaked elsewhere, right? And there's nothing you can do about that for passwords. So it's easy to put accounts at risk. So naturally, there's been a lot going on in this space. Social login came first, biometric login came next. Multi-factor authentication is finally seeing more widespread adoption. And these are all necessary. And this is what Ory Identities and Ory Kratos and open source make easy, because catching up with all of these trends and adding new methods all the time is tedious. So we spend time adding social login providers, expanding biometric support, and getting ready. But I want to emphasize that now is actually the time to act, because as Aeneas has said, passkeys are coming. Apple, Microsoft, Google, the big tech is coming together to standardize how fingerprint, Face ID, and biometric logins work. And they're making it work so that your tokens are synchronized across devices. So all you need is one of your devices that you own and trust, your phone, your tablet, your computer, and you can just sign in. It essentially just works. So with passkeys, we finally have a viable replacement that people will adopt, and adoption will pick up. And this sooner than you know, people will actually be annoyed by you not offering passwordless login, right? In a year or 2 or 3 from now, you will look very, very dated if you don't go with the trend and if you still require users to come up with passwords and use password managers. Browser support is rolling out over the next months and quarters. We'll see a few more announcements from Microsoft, Apple, Google, etc. It's going to get more widespread in iOS and Android, and it already works in Ory. You can essentially just get started now. You can try passwordless, and we implemented all of the standards as they are right now. Standard is final next year. We'll stay ahead of the game, and so should you. Now, we heard a bunch of things about permissions. Like every meaningful piece of software has some sort of permission checks. You log in the users, then they hopefully see something, can do something. Is Jane allowed to watch this cat video? I sure hope so. Cat videos should be open source, right? Unless you're building only cats and whatever. Can Steve refund orders? That's more interesting, because there I hope the answer is it depends. Who is Steve? What role does he have? What kind of order is this? Is this his domain? Maybe he can, maybe he can't. And so you start building permissions, as we've heard a couple of times today. And this is so easy to get wrong. You add up rules in your database, you add rules across your different application layers. And then you add new rules, and now you want to permit this additional user group to do the same thing, and suddenly you have 20 different systems to touch and keep up to date and maintain. So we know there's a better solution. Google published the Zanzibar paper, and we were first with Keto to implement this in open source. And now, with Ory permissions, we have the entire functionality on the network. So you can just use it. It's really just a couple of APIs. And with the Ory permission language that we've just seen, it's really easy to just come up with these rules, write them, test them, and model even the most complex permissioning schemes that you may need in a few lines of code. So that really changes the game, especially it changes the developer experience when you try to build permissions into any larger, meaningful system. And it removes a lot of headaches. So it scales to billions of permissions, it checks in milliseconds, and it's super flexible. And it's really the most elegant solution to a very, very hard problem. And it's proven in very big systems. So if you're still doing permissions yourself, you should really give this a try on the Ory network. Next, the most fun topic, OAuth 2, always great to explain. But basically, look, everything so far is relatively straightforward. Everybody needs login, everybody needs authentication and permissions. But it gets really interesting once you start having multiple apps, multiple sites, multiple services. Then you have other people trying to access your APIs. You have third-party apps trying to do operations on your platform, trying to access user data. And essentially, that's the moment when you turn from a service business into a platform business, when you open up and create something meaningful from your assets, your data, your APIs. These are your lifeblood. GitHub's actually a good example. What started as a nice way to host your Git repository became this platform where your CI systems connect, your issue trackers connect, you can sign in with GitHub into a gazillion different developer tools. And if you want to go through that same transformation, you're becoming a platform and you're gonna adopt OAuth 2. Now, if you've ever implemented OAuth 2 yourself, you know it's painful, to say the least. And that's also where Ory started, right? Ory offered Ory Hydra to make this problem go away for a lot of people. And now we can proudly announce that all of the functionality around OAuth 2 and Open Connect is available on the Ory network. So it's never been as easy to create OAuth clients, create an OpenID Connect provider for your identities, and to start authenticating services, apps, and third-party clients.
Yeah, it really hasn't been easy to implement this. This was quite a pain, I can say.
One specific use case to this that I think is worth highlighting and where we put a lot of work into is machine-to-machine authentication. Like you see this magical fridge here, like as pretty much as long as I remember, I've been promised this magical fridge that can reorder milk for me when it's running out. I still don't have it, but let's assume it's there for the thought experiment. What you really want is this to work, and what I don't want is for my 14-year-old neighbor to order like a truckload of milk. She might find this funny, but I don't want the neighborhood cows to do overtime for this. So you want these devices to be secure, you want your servers communicating around the globe to be secure, and you want each and every API access and request being authenticated and authorized. And with OAuth 2 on the Ory network and with our Zero Trust proxy, Oathkeeper, you have the simple tools to just make it work, to really up-level your security and make sure traffic is validated and you know what's happening and that Dave is Dave and that I'm ordering the milk. Now, for something more user visible, the account experience. Sign up and log in is every business's front door, often the first meaningful customer interaction where essentially visitors convert to customers. And nowadays, it's becoming more complex because you need to strike this balance between convenience and security. And you know, nobody loves multi-factor authentication, right? Nobody likes to pull out their phone and enter codes or to plug in a device or to go through extra hoops. But sometimes you have to. And then people make different choices. They use different authentication methods. Flows start to become a lot more complex than they were when you just had username, password, and a yes-no response. So that's what Kratos is doing. That's what Ory Identities is doing. But you also have to write the actual experience for it. So we did it for you and wrote the Ory account experience. So now you can just go to your Ory project on the network, on Ory Cloud, go to /UI, and you'll see a login dialog, a sign-in form, and all of the flows that you typically need in an application. Add your multi-factor credentials, reset your password, log in, log out, you name it. And it's just there, so you can start playing, start coding, and start getting into the real experience. And all of the complexity of the flows is hidden away from you. And it also just updates everything you change, like enabling passwordless, it's passwordless, adding fields, it adds fields, like you don't have to do anything. It's like marketing would call it no code. Still maybe one line of code needed, but yeah. Yeah. And we made it even better because we understand that if you're serious about your brand, you want to build this part pixel perfect. You want your sign up to be on brand and exactly the way you want. You want login and your entire My Account section to be exactly matching the way your brand presents itself. But that doesn't have to mean you have to do all of the work again, because we built the building blocks now. We built the little cards and components for all of the for all of the flows that end users see, and they take away the intrinsics and the complexities of authentication. And the way we build it is really native to the web. It's just these little pluggable components, and they work with React, with the Express stack, with vanilla HTML, with Next.js, you name it. You just drop them in, you override some styles to make them look the way you want to look, and you have this deep integration of My Account functionality right in your app, right in your website. And it's really never been that simple, and it's all wired up against the Ory network and entirely non-invasive to your application. So I really encourage you, check out our new Ory Elements repository that we published on GitHub just last week, I think, and get started, because it's game-changing your developing flow for the front end. Last but not least, I still have to highlight our edge serving. That's a huge milestone for us to move our services and key functionality much closer to your users and also closer to your servers. If you do constant access verification, as you should, that not only means a lot of cryptography, it also means a lot of network calls, right? And as we hear, you don't want to add latency, and you don't want to make your application slow. So we're expanding our data center footprint, we're adding edge servers, and we're really getting as close to you as we can so that performance is never an issue with Ory. Now, this is just a sneak peek of highlights. There's so much more we've been doing, and so much more that the community has been doing. Our open source projects evolve every day, and it's so good to see all of the contributions. Our development tooling has evolved significantly. Our admin tooling is getting more mature by the day, and getting lots of exciting features, including the Ory permission language. And yeah, I think this is also a good point to say thanks again to the community for so much you have contributed, and so many great ideas, and so much good feedback that we couldn't do without. So it's been an exciting year, and I think we're really only getting started. I mean, the future is hard to predict, but I can promise you that we will remain very focused on these three top areas. We will scale out our network, and we will make local data and compliance work for you. It's all there, and as we expand, it's going to be the #1 network to run fast applications on. We care deeply about user privacy, about compliance, about treating user data with respect. We also see a lot of opportunity in making the system better through the data you can observe in authentication and authorization. That means intelligent security is what we're after as a second point. There's so much opportunity to prevent account theft, to protect systems from threats, and so much we can do on a large network that isn't feasible in a single installation. So we're excited to bring features that help both developers and users to stay safe and stay secure. And lastly, developer productivity is where we are naturally coming from. We're building software as developers for developers, and we will keep obsessing about all the ways we can actually make you spend less time with Ory and make your life easier as developers. So stay tuned. There's an exciting future ahead, and we very much look forward to this future with all of you.
Right, and then thank you very much. This is a really big list of people also here in the room, so you will probably recognize some of the avatars. It's all the people who made contributions to Ory, be it, I think it's actually only commits, so actual code contributions, be it in documentation, adding features, fixing bugs. and it's an impressive list. There's like one space is left, but don't worry, like we can make the image bigger. So yeah, we welcome any contributions. Be part of the community. Pick an issue. Think of a new feature that you would like to have. Make a contribution. We'll try to do our best. I know that we've been a little bit slow maybe in the past weeks as we're preparing for the summit with code reviews, but we'll pick up pace again, and we're looking forward to have you in the community, on Slack, on GitHub, and on our website. And with that, thank you so much. Thank you, Klaus, and enjoy the rest of the conference. I think there's some interesting talks coming up right after this one, so enjoy.